skulls. Three ancient types of devil. What is three types of ancient weapons? What does it go? What is three?
Emu has 3 skulls. Blackbeard has 3 skulls. Ors wears 3 skulls. Even the film Red Ultimate Villain Taught Musica has 3 skulls. Okay, please, it's gotta mean something, right? Right? But what? Like, that's what I'm really trying to figure out with you today, and I think it might hold some of the most important keys to One Piece's biggest mysteries: the Great Kingdom, the Abyss, the First World. I just have this feeling that all of it will come back to these 3 pesky skulls. Now, of course, we can't talk about 3 skulls without first starting with the OG, Blackbeard, right? I mean, it's kind of in the dude's Jolly Roger. So if I'm actually gonna try and get to the bottom of this with you today, I think that he's just gotta be the one to kick things off with. If you're probably already familiar with the classic Cerberus theory, you might already know some of this, but in a little bit, we'll actually slot Emu in and see how the world is gonna actually change everything here, because the 3 skulls on the Jolly Roger are far from the only place the number 3 comes up with Blackbeard. My man's got 3 guns. His weapon has 3 claws, which left 3 scars across my poor man Shanks's eye. He's usually drawn missing 3 teeth, 3 baddies on his hip, and of course, maybe most importantly, he's got those 3 ponytails in his beard. Is it called a ponytail when it's on a beard? Or remind me to ask my barber later. I gotta get that checked. Anyways, from this whole connection with Blackbeard and the number 3, a bunch of different theories have sprouted out over the course of many years with what's actually going on with Blackbeard, especially, with him having multiple devil fruits. This, combined with Luffy and Zoro referring to Blackbeard as them or they, made a lot of fans think that Blackbeard's body might host multiple personalities. And that then led to the very popular Cerberus theory, which stated that Blackbeard had probably eaten a Cerberus zone fruit or would acquire one later in the story, and that's how he could eat 3 devil fruits. 1 for each head. Now, of course, the Cerberus theory has not aged particularly well, especially that now there's an actual Cerberus in the story. Well, I guess 2 actually? Cerberosis. But on top of that, with all that we actually know about Blackbeard's past, I do think that things have changed considerably in general. I personally imagine that Teach actually got the 3 skull imagery from his lineage from the Davy clan is the most likely explanation. I mean, after the entire God Valley flashback we've gotten, we now know that Blackbeard's father was actually Rox D. Zebek, whose true name was Davy D. Zebek, a descendant of the Davy Jones, whoever he may have actually been in the One Piece world, but he was a big deal very clearly. And Blackbeard is obviously all about fulfilling what Rox, his daddy, was unable to do. As a little kid, Blackbeard's own father, Zebek here, was transformed into a grotesque demon monster by Emu and forced to hunt him and his own mother down. They really only ended up surviving thanks to young Kuma, who blasted Teach and presumably also Itties, his mommy, away from God Valley to Lulusia. No idea where they went. Definitely curious what happened there, but now I assume that she went on to teach her kid about his history, his father's history, while they lived in Lulusia Kingdom before she eventually met her fate as well, but we absolutely do not know at this point if that's what actually happened or not. What I do know, though, is that Blackbeard seems to be absolutely obsessed with accomplishing his father's goal of defeating Emu and avenging the slaughtered Davy clan. And in service of that very goal, he played the very long game, hiding out on Whitebeard's ship for many years just for a chance to at some point obtain the legendary Darkness Fruit. And once he got that, things really went into absolute overdrive. And that's why I think one possible meaning of the 3 skulls is indicating the king of the world. Think about it for a moment. According to Rox, Davy D. Jones once held that title, King of the World, though Emu then claims in return that he never actually was the real king. So it really does seem like Davy Jones and Emu had major beef at some point back in the day, likely during the Void Century or before it. And one guess I have at that situation is that while Joy Boy was the first pirate and hailed from the Great Kingdom himself, Davy D. Jones may very well have been the king of the Great Ancient Kingdom, the very same one that Nerona, Emu, and the other 19 kings of the Alliance fought in order to later found the New World Government. And so right now, right, Emu wears 3 skulls on this outfit that we see in Elbaf, and he's also King of the World. And while I really can't picture Davy Jones also wearing that chef hat-sized crown on his head, I can absolutely see him rocking with the 3 skulls. So could this thing, the symbol, actually have been a signifier of Great Kingdom royalty, a marker of the King of the World that was then adopted by Emu after he dethroned the old king and kind of took over control of the entire planet? Because this could actually explain the origin of Jolly Rogers in the One Piece world in general, because if Davy Jones wore 3 skulls and that was a symbol of the Great Kingdom, then maybe Joy Boy, the first pirate also from the Great Kingdom, also adopted this skull imagery for the very first pirate flag. But that's probably a theory for another day, just wanted to bring it up here. Because another thing that's really bugging me here is the shape of Emu skulls specifically. If you haven't looked closely at them yet, it turns out they actually have horns on them, right? But they don't look like ancient giant horns. In fact, I could only find 1 skull in the entire series that has horn in that very specific shape, and that's the skull worn by Salome out of all characters, which is Boa Hancock's snake. Like, very random. I don't know what's going on here, but if 3 of the skulls are suitable for a King of the World, maybe 1 is the perfect fit for a pirate empress. In fact, it of course once again could even connect back to Amazon Lily being connected to the Great Kingdom during the Void Century, with a single one of the skulls ending up worn by the snake, companion of Amazon Lily's ruler, as a mark of royalty, for the same reason that Emo and Blackbeard also have these skulls. And it might even have been that there were 4 of these skulls, but one of them was taken by Lily when she betrayed Emo and joined Joy Boy's side, founding Amazon Lily and then passing it down as an heirloom of her country. But honestly, no matter how I'm trying to cut it here, that still of course doesn't explain what the skulls actually do or who they are. Like, it kind of feels more than just a straight up symbol that has no deeper meaning in the story, right? Like, especially now that we've seen Emo wear the 3 skulls on his belt, it just seems very unlikely that that's all there is to it. Now, it could of course be more tied to his devil fruit powers, omen, or it might, mark him as the keeper of the abyss or something. It might be less a King of the World thing here and more a King of the Underworld thing potentially. Because what are skulls if not a symbol of death, of course? And what is the devil, which Emu's devil's fruit is named after, if not the ruler of the underworld? I mean, come on. With Emu, the Gorosei, and the Holy Knights coming into the forefront of the entire series, Oda's basically dropped a whole new power system now on top of us that I still have a ton of questions about. Emu calls it Omen, and it's signified by black flames that he can shape into seemingly anything, but we also see these Omen flames in techniques like Domi Reversi, summoning circles, and whenever the Holy Knights use certain abilities as well. Gunko's arrows, for example, would have the same abyssal flame sometimes, even before she ever was possessed by Emu, and Shamrock's sword, Cerberus, remember, was also engulfed in these same flames too. But what I'm still not 100% sure about here is the connection between Omen and what they call the Abyss, right? I mean, the Holy Knights use summoning circles to travel through the Abyss, which seems to suggest it is a place, at least in some sense maybe. So in the same way, victims of the Domi Reversi technique seem to be pulled down into the Abyss before re-emerging transformed, and I have a lot of theories about what that could potentially mean, and I bet that you have a lot of theories about it too. And I've actually started dabbling a little bit with streaming on the channel right now and over on my Twitch accounts, link in the description, and I'm hopefully gonna start having a consistent Theory Thursday stream every now and then, at least once a month, still working out the details. So if you'd like me to react to your theories, come join the stream sometime or share them with me on Patreon. Anyways, back to what the Abyss might actually be here though, and how it connects to the three skulls. It could literally be One Piece's hell, or the underworld, that kind of seems to be a real place where characters like Brook, who is of course very relevant again at the moment, is pulling his powers from. And how wild would it be if the One Piece actually is in the underworld and Luffy has to go all Doomslayer and tear through the legions of hell? The Abyss could of course also be an alternate dimension altogether. It could be the core of the planet, made of the remnants of the dead Forbidden Sun even, or like the old One Piece world that has been burned to a crisp, kind of how it is in Fire Force, for example. We just really don't know enough yet to safely say what it is, but I definitely know enough to throw some theories at the wall and see what might stick. So, how do we actually connect the number 3 and the skulls to the Abyss and make this work? Well, first off, good boy Cerberus here comes back into play. If Shamrock's sword, Cerberus, is connected to the Abyss, which it kinda seems to be because again, those black flames come out of it, then that would definitely point us in the underworld direction. In Greek mythology, Cerberus is the Hound of Hades, or Pluton, and serves as the guardian dog at the entrance to the underworld. Sorry, Blackbeard Cerberus theory, there's now a new Cerberus theory in town, I'm afraid, because the connection between Cerberus's 3 heads and Imu's 3 skulls could signify that connection to the abyssal underworld, and the fact that Shamrock is essentially a guardian dog for Imu, like the One Piece world's devil, or Pluton? What is Imu? We still don't know. And actually, Greek mythology in general could give us a few other hints here too. Because let's be real, there are a ton of groups of 3 all over world mythology, but Greek mythology has a lot of 3 specifically tied to the underworld as well. And I kind of like using the Greek here because that mythology obviously connects to another triad in One Piece, the ancient weapons named after the Greek deities Poseidon, Uranus, and Pluton. Well, Pluton's Roman, but you get the idea. Hades, right? The trios just keep coming. I already mentioned Cerberus, 3 heads, but there's also the 3 fates, for instance. So is Oda telling us that Imu killed Fate itself and now wears its skulls as a trophy? That would be pretty sick, but there's also the 3 Furies, the 3 judges of the dead, the 3 sons of Kronos who defeated the Titan and then imprisoned him in Tartarus, in the underworld, in the Abyss. It's 3s all the way down. So the Abyss may just be the Tartarus version of One Piece in a way, where only the worst of the worst are being trapped. And if the Abyss is essentially a prison, there might actually be things to guard inside the Abyss, and while we see the Holy Knights traveling from place to place with the Abyss powers, it could be the case that Imu's worst enemies are actually imprisoned within it. And I mean, let's be real here, the world government's largest prison, Impel Down, literally has levels based off the hell in Dante's Inferno, right? So I don't think it's the most craziest of stretches to imagine that, One Piece's literal underworld could be a prison as well, perhaps even holding longtime enemies like Davy D. Jones. Or, if not Davy Jones, it could even imprison 3 characters who originally owned those skulls, whether that's massive beasts like the Hellflame Serpent, or it's 3 of the 4 gods who Imu defeated to climb to the top of the world. More on who might have actually owned these skulls, by the way, a little bit later, but for now, maybe to free or find the souls of these skulls, Blackbeard needs to go into the Abyss itself, which may not sound as crazy as it seems, honestly. After all, if we really think about it, the Abyss in general kind of seems to connect perfectly to Blackbeard's Darkness Fruit too, because when Teach uses his fruit, it also shows up in the form of black flames. Very similar, I personally feel, to the Omen powers, and I kind of suspect that this is why Blackbeard why he needed this fruit so very, very badly. The darkness fruit is most likely one of the 2 devil fruits that Rox was also on the hunt for alongside the Nidhogg fruit. Otherwise, I'm really not sure why Teach would be dead set on getting this fruit specifically if Rox was after the Nika fruit or something else instead, especially since Rox didn't even seem to properly know who Nika was when Loki brought up the sun gods, unless he was lying or pretending for some reason, which the dude really didn't do outside of his name. Everything we learn about him during the Herald flashback kind of makes it seem like despite his many flaws, lying was not really a Rox or Zebek staple. He seemed kind of like a good dude at the core. So it could just be a case of fighting black fire with black fire. The darkness fruit and Omen could actually be similar or related powers, and this might be reaching a little bit here, but the black fire is of course not the only thing they have in common. The Abyss pulls people into the Domi Reversi, while Blackbeard's darkness also pulls things in with a gravitational black hole force, and if Omen, or as it's called in Japanese, Maki, the devil spirit, is like the dark side of Haki, it could connect to Blackbeard's ability to negate devil fruit powers in the same way that Haki can also cancel out a lot of devil fruit abilities. I think that Blackbeard's darkness fruit actually holds one of the keys to actually being able to overcome Imu's insane powers, even if it's as simple as touching him in order to cancel out his devil abilities. But it might not even be that simple at all. And we could actually get a hint for exactly how his fruit will triumph if we look at another character who also happens to wear 3 skulls. I now want to dive into the big bad and very weird reference that Oda dropped with it of Film Red, Todd Musica. This musical demon menace also has 3 skulls in his design floating near around his body. And normally, to be completely honest, I wouldn't really bring up any movie contents in defense of any theory because they're kind of like these little side adventures. But for this one specifically, Oda's actually on record saying that there is gonna be something like Todd Musica in the actual series at the end of the story. And it also seems that, like the sun god Nika, Imu's also weirdly pretty musical, with the houses and trees bursting into demonic songs when he showed up on Elbaf. So between the tunes and the skulls, Imu might just be our prime candidate for this canon Todd Musica parallel. And of course, in Film Red specifically, there was a special key to defeating this giant monster, because while Luffy was trapped inside a dream world thanks to Uta's Sing Sing fruit, he actually had to work together with Shanks and his crew. Luffy defeated Todd Musica in the dream world, while Shanks had to defeat it in the real world, right? Only those two together could take out the monster. And so the logical conclusion, I think, would be that Imu might need to be defeated in a very similar way, with Luffy fighting in the normal world and Blackbeard fighting against Imu inside the Abyss or something. That would of course make for the perfect rival team-up, leaving the final competition for the One Piece and the fate of the world between the 2 or 3 or 4 Yonko, with Imu then out of the way. But Todd Musica isn't the only other characters who wears the 3 skulls either, because did you really think that I forgot about the Continent Puller, that titan of the old world? Yeah. Next up, we're gonna talk about Ors. The reanimated ancient giant of Thriller Bark also rocked the 3 skulls on his belt, but that definitely wasn't a little piece of extra decorating on Moria's part. It's gotta be an ancient giant thing, because his descendant, Little Ors Jr., look at it. He has the same 3 skulls as well. So, a little bit of a recap on ancient giants first off. Loki and Herald are both part ancient giant, you can tell from their horns, but the full-on real ancient giants are these massive guys with the colorful skin that for some reason tend to get smaller and smaller with each generation. Now, this version of Ors we see on Thriller Bark only died around 500 years ago, so after the Void Century, but I've kind of got a feeling that the ancient giants, the ones even older than this Ors, played a massive part, no pun intended, in the ancient history of the One Piece worlds. And while I imagine this Continent Puller Ors here not being by far big enough to actually pull continents and islands, his ancestors probably were. They might have been the one to even shape the One Piece world itself. I mean, just look at how Wano seems to be several different islands all crammed together, all with independent climates, and on top of it, there is actually a huge ancient giant skull right by it in the form of Onigashima. Now, that guy was pulling continents, and, looking at the side cut of Wano, you can actually see that if he was standing, he would be just the right size to just pull islands together pretty easily. And my guess is that while Imu probably got his 3-skull fashion sense from Davy Jones probably got it from the ancient giants. I mean, there's just plenty of evidence, I think, that at some point, the planet was probably ruled by creatures far bigger than any giant or Loki or even the Orson Thriller Bark that we've ever seen anyone in the story. For one, there's this massive sword stuck inside the Atom Tree that absolutely dwarfs any of the island's giants. Somebody in the ancient world must have wielded that thing at some point in the past, right? And it's not the only one either. There's of course another absolutely massive blade on Onigashima that looks just about the right size for whatever creature the skull that is Onigashima belonged to might have wielded. Was that a correct sentence? Probably, I think so. If Davy Jones wore the skulls as a sign that he was king of the world, and Imu doing the same now, then these guys were likely the kings of the world all the way back in the beginning of the One Piece timeline, maybe in World Zero, right before the first world ever started and the sky races came down from the heavens. Now what's really weird is that these horns on Onigashima and on the ancient giants look just about the same, as if over time these guys have just been getting smaller and smaller. But in the first world, or even before that, they must have been unbelievably big. Now, I think at this point it's actually worth noting that the skulls on Imu's design also have horns, though they're not quite the same shape as the horns like Loki's or the ancient giants. But again, the only one place I can think of where we've seen a skull with horns that perfectly match the shape of Imu's is on Salome, so what's that even supposed to mean? Hancock, is Imu confirmed? Is Salome a nod to the Hellflame Serpent? I mean, he's probably too itty-bitty for that, but Salome being a snake and having that skull does kind of make me think that there is some connection there. I mean, Amazon Lily does seem to be made out of giant petrified snakes, and one of these could well be the remains of the Hellflame Serpent for all we know, because turns out that, they've been passing down the, petrifying fruit that literally the queen of Amazon Lily wields. They've been passing it down for generations, so who says that these might not actually be real living beings? Also, I have no idea how this might fit into anything here, but it's kind of weird that the skulls on Imu's belt have like the little seam here, as if the skulls have been opened, and I don't know, the only thing that came to my mind was this guy from JJK, right? Kenjaku, who likes brain swapping with people. But I don't think that that's what happened, so I don't know. If you have ideas why they might be stitched together, let me know. The question remaining, of course, is why are there 3 skulls specifically, and who do they belong to? Again, I do think that wearing them is an indicator that someone is king of the world, but why 3 skulls? Why not that really excessively tall crown, or a cool tattoo, or something like that, like a cool sword? Since Imu is wearing that same skull, let's connect the dots. Imu seems to have the powers of the devil. The devil is often presented as a serpent, just like Salome, who also has a biblical name, by the way. Once again, sensing some connection here to the Hellflame Serpent. And as you probably know if you watch the channel regularly, I've already had suspicion for a long time that the Hellflame Serpent is somehow connected to Imu and maybe even the Abyss, because the Abyss shows up with literal hell flames, it seems. So could one of these skulls be representing the Hellflame Serpent? And if so, I think we might be able to figure out who the other 2 actually are. Before Imu ever rose to power, there may have been 3 kings of the world that may have eventually been brought into opposition with each other. Someone may have defeated all 3 of the old rulers and now wears their skulls as a sign of their dominance over the world. Because at the very least, we now know that there were other gargantuan creatures in the ancient past Nidhogg is a prime candidate, as well as the gigantic demonic creature that's depicted on the left side of our favorite thing, the mural, and is likely connected to Emu as well. Emu actually talks to Nidhogg, so Emu may have exterminated these original giant beasts and now wears their skulls to show that he's in charge now. And today, their spirits only live on in the form of devil fruits after the originals were actually defeated. Alternatively, of course, maybe these skulls don't represent these massive monsters. I mean, we've heard over and over again about the 4 gods. We even know the names now of Nika and Zaza, and the others are probably gonna follow soon. In this arc, it feels really like Oda is going hard on all the gods in Elbaf specifically, and if Emu turns out to actually be something like the Earth God, what happened to the other 3 gods? And I'm not talking about their devil fruits or their current incarnations of the story, I'm talking about the originals in their real bodies. They might be the actual owners of these 3 skulls. So maybe these things are not symbolic at all, and Emu is just that metal and wears the skulls of the other 3 dead gods on his person at all times. Is that why the skulls have like the seams on them? Did Emu scoop their brains out for their powers? Did he eat them to gain their powers? Is that how anything works? Is Emu the Kirby of One Piece? Or, in another option that is more symbolic, it could represent the endless struggle that seems to be held by certain figures in every era. Right now, it's Luffy, Blackbeard, and Emu working towards determining the fate of the world, but in the second world, it was Joy Boy Davy Jones and, well, Emu again, and the same pattern was probably true in the first world as well with Nika. A struggle between 3 kings waged across 3 different worlds, separated in time, and 3 skulls worn to represent each of them. But if any of this is true, it might actually mean that this symbol even predates the first world, because it might come even before the arrival of the gods, which low-key I think are probably more connected to the Lunarians and might just be literal aliens technically from the moon. In fact, I kind of like to call like the huge inhabitants of the ancient One Piece world Titans, specifically because they probably got replaced by the 4 gods, and you know, in Greek mythology, the gods dethroned the Titans to start ruling over Earth. But this probably sounds like a lot, so it's a good thing I made a whole mega theory about it that I like to call Titan Piece, and you can check it out in this video right here. Otherwise, thanks for watching. Thanks to all of our wonderful patrons. I really can't express how much your supporters mean to the channel. Link to that is in the description below as well. Thank you so much, and I will hopefully see you in the next video. Have a wonderful day.